Okay. So, can I start now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So, hello to everybody. My name is Cangül. I am from Istanbul, Turkey, and I'm very happy to be here with you. And I thank you, Linda, and to your colleagues for this organization. It's been now maybe since the beginning that you have started. I have been following everything what you've been organizing with great excitement. And I am even more excited now because it's my turn now to talk about myself and about Sufism, which is my practice since 20 years. And here I am. So I am a life coach or life counselor. Actually, for 20 years, I have been having a career for um, multinational companies here in Istanbul as general manager and country directors. And finally, 4 years ago, I have decided to take a completely different direction. Actually, life has pushed me into that direction. And I have decided then to go deep in my life, in astrology, psychology. So at the age of 50, I have started to study psychology, and I have a certification from psychology. And then I had the chance to work with Mark Jones for evolutionary astrology, and I have certification from Pluto School. And here in my country, I am, as I mentioned to you before, I'm working as life counselor, and mainly I'm using astrology for, especially for individual, uh, I mean, for people who come to me for, consultancy for their lives and their problems and so on. So I just would like to mention first of all Sufism, the practice, the spiritual practice that I have been doing since almost 20 years now, which has actually changed my life completely. And thanks to Sufism, my inner journey has started. And this has been a difficult, challenging, but beautiful journey, which is still continuing, of course. And Sufism has opened me new gates like psychology, astrology, and that helped me also to understand myself, my karmas, my difficulties, and especially 4 or 5 years ago, when I have decided really to stop my career, professional life, and then choose this direction, which has not been easy, but I'm very happy for that now, that I have done so. So I would like to share with you my feelings, my thoughts, a little bit from my life, and about Sufism, how Sufism is seeing astrology and psychology as well. So let's start together, okay? So Sufism says, you're not a drop, you're the ocean. Rumi says like this. So in Sufism, we say the human being, so every human being is the universe itself. So, like for instance, another great mystic, Sufi mystic, Yunus Emre says that he couldn't find the real treasure in the four books of different religions, until he met real love in the in his heart, in the endless and the beautiful love for God. And Ibn Arabi, another Sufi mystic who was also a philosopher, uh, he was really one of the great mystics who has been working a lot with astrology. He has beautiful books, and in which he mentions about how planets and the movement of the planets can affect life of people. And he explains how we should understand this. And actually, as Sufism sees that the whole universe is within one person, then also the planets are somehow within us. So, as I mentioned before, when my inner journey started 20 years ago, or better to say, when I consciously began an inner journey, I happened to meet Sufism. That which is intangible, mysterious, and hidden has become shipped to the depth of my inner sea. Together, we started to sail within that inner sea, which initially it was not there to look within so far. We kept on sailing to discover the deep of the heart. The first thing I remember is that I felt within the heart that even within my heart, a flower could bloom. And with great enthusiasm, I discovered that with closed eyes, it was possible to see through unknown things. And in order to see the truth, the deep truth, to close the eyes sometimes and look inside is really necessary. And in time, this ship has started to become my own inner cup. Moreover, I was hugely surprised to discover how small my previous cup was. Unconsciously, I had filled it with so much dust and burdens. My Sufi teacher used to say to me, when you take first step on the path, they ask you if you have eaten food. If your answer is yes, then they say, then start to wash your dirty dishes first. The answer to this seemingly simple question is in reality very deep and meaningful. So my first years on the path, I spent time washing my dirty dishes, which of course I still keep on doing. It is shocking to discover how many dirty dishes were accumulated throughout the years. While you pursue to release and clean at the same time, it allows you, of course, digging within yourself. It is said that in Sufism, that one should continuously dig in the same spot until the deepest level, as this is where the ultimate love can come out. In fact, salvation happens once one approaches that very deep where the beloved is, the God. The path of Sufism is the path of love. God is the ultimate and infinite love. We happen to be with the breath of this love. We are born out of that breath, like bloom like flowers later on. The inner journey in this worldly life is the very attempt to return back to our real home through this love. This intermediate station in our infinite life is a place of being tested on this inner search. It is a place of maturation. When we fell down into this body, we forget where we came from. And with an illusion, we create an imaginative world which we hold on so tightly. In reality, we are all prisoners in this body town. And even if we are not conscious of it, our deepest longing is getting free of this captivity and return back to its homeland. When diving into our inner depth, we understand better how fear can become the greatest block and trap on this path. In fact, Fear is one of the greatest traps on our journey. There are so many unconscious and conscious fears within us. And with that fear, we cling to the ego and to the material values, and the ego is holding on. In reality, we make use of this type of material values, such as money, status, partners, and so on, to escape from our fears. However, in the end, none of them are permanent forever. Hence comes disappointments. Some of us to experience very traumatic events in life, which we learn lessons from. Others may have less difficult life lessons. Great mystics say the ones who are in search of spirituality are usually the very poor ones or very rich ones. For the very poor ones, this search can be an ultimate hope for their desperate lives. As for the very rich one, despite all the money that they have, there is meaningless, hence the search for something ultimate and bigger. I belong to the category of people learning life lessons through very traumatic events. And in fact, my life has been quite difficult for many years. Finally, 7 years ago, after experiencing once more the same type of karmic trauma in my life, I started really thinking, digging in, seeing in, trying to seeing in for months without ever even leaving home. And I asked these questions to myself. What should I learn from these karmic events? What is the source of this karma? Where do I make mistakes? What should I understand? How should I understand? This is how deep astrology has entered into my life. Although I was very familiar with astrology over 20 years, it was the first time I discovered the beneficence in order to search for answers to those questions I found within the depths of astrology. So, a new gate was opened to me firstly, and which is the main one, the real gate on my path. And deep astrology has helped me, is helping me so much as being a truly valuable support to surf in deep waters on stormy weather. So this is how I met astrology, and this is how actually I'm seeing the spiritual world, the life from a spiritual point of view. So when reading the books of Jeffrey Wolf Green and later on of Mark Jones, of course, with whom I have been working a lot, I was thinking, this is so valuable. This is so important that with astrology, you can really get to the point, when you are able to do the right interpretation deeply from a spiritual point of view and also from a psychological point of view. I have found out that I could help myself a lot, because now I'm going to show you also my chart, and you will see I have a quite challenging aspects. Maybe I should now put on the screen my chart. Just a second. Okay. Can you see? Is it on? Okay. As you're seeing on the screen, this is my chart. So I have been really having a lot of traumas in my life. I mean, serious problems with my mother, I've lost my father when I was around 20 years, 25 years. And I have been having recurring patterns in my life, many of them, like a lot of relationship problems, as I mentioned to you before, mother and mothering. In fact, I couldn't have a child. I was married, but I had blamed my husband because he didn't want to have a child. He had a grown-out child from his previous marriage. So I was thinking at that time that it was just because of him. But then, of course, I have found out, I have understood that I didn't have the courage to have a baby. And then I have understood later on, many years after many years, of course, that I should solve the problem with my mother first before I could think about having a baby or something. But it took really many years until I could forgive my mother, until I... Hello? Well, as our subject is astrology, maybe at this point I would like to mention a little bit about my chart and about how, for instance, the South Node Saturn conjunction, actually Moon Saturn South Node conjunction in the 8th house, has affected me, and how things have manifested in my life. Actually, as Mark Jones says, the Saturn conjunct South Node is a challenging aspect. It's not an easy aspect, and it shows that there is a deep karma coming from the family. And actually, here, as it is in in the 8th house, all what was coming as karma has happened in my life. Like, for instance, my father has passed away when I was very young. My mother has been always a problem because she was emotionally not, maybe psychologically not totally all right, and she had always support. And after the death of my father, she actually got into a very deep depression. And I have a younger sister. For her, I had to take care for many years. So really, then at that point, I think I have clinged too much on the material things in life, because um, I was emotionally not secure. I felt, maybe when I was very young, I felt like lost because my father was not there, my mom was ill, and my sister was very young. And so the only thing maybe remained to me was clinging on being successful in business life, in professional life, and to have money as much as I can and possessions, so that I could feel myself strong. So this is, of course, a big trap, an illusion, but at that time I didn't know it. And so I have really worked a lot. I studied economics, and then I've started to I've started to work very hard. I had studied economics and business administration, and with multinational companies, um, I have worked for many years and I was very successful, but I was very unhappy. So, very unhappy. And each time, actually, I was, let's say, I was getting successful, and I was reaching in an important position. What happened is, for instance, there was a big flooding, and my house was in the flood. Actually, in the compound there were other houses, but only my house was completely destroyed. I mean, really destroyed. So everything what I had, built was gone. So this theme, for instance, has repeated itself 10 years later. Again, this time not as big as it was at that time, but another flooding. And again, my house was underwater completely. And I had money, then I have lost it. Then I have worked and worked again. I was successful, then I lost it. So it has been repeating like that. So really recurring patterns. And in the meantime, I had to take care of my mother and my sister. So at a point, I remember myself screaming, I want to feel that I'm a woman, because I had such big masculine energy that I was clinging on, like, doing things, working hard, business, whatever, that I had escaped and also forgot to uh, nourish myself, to be with my feelings until really one day something has happened that I participated in a Reiki session, and I didn't know until by then what Reiki was, what chakras were, whatever. The only thing I remember that since I was a child, my dreams came true. I mean, I was dreaming, and then after a while, that thing was happening. Things like that. So I was believing in God, but that's all. So I didn't know about energies, chakras, whatever. And so in this Reiki session, after the first initiation, something has happened to me. Like I started seeing auras. I didn't know that it was aura, but I could see colors around the Reiki teacher, and I didn't know what it is. So I asked, and she says, "Okay, you're seeing aura. How nice, whatever." But after that, I got very sick. Because I was closing my eyes and I was seeing a dervish, like, I don't know if you're familiar with whirling in Sufism and in Rumi's practice. There are dervishes who do this dance. It's a sacred dance, actually. They whirl. So I was closing my eyes and I was seeing these dervishes, but I didn't understand what it was. But another thing what was happening to me is that all the fears, worries were in me, like on the surface. So I could not sleep. I could not, sit still, and I didn't know what was happening. So it took me really long time until I could find a solution. I, in fact, have contacted a friend of mine who is an astrologer, and he told me that he knows somebody who could help me because, for months I couldn't sleep and I was afraid of everything. And all these negative feelings were on the surface. All of a sudden, after this Reiki session, this has happened to me. So this is how I met my Sufi teacher. Actually, he's a medical doctor at the same time. So I was very, very sick and I didn't know why it had happened until he explained to me that sometimes energies, when if you don't know how to control it, even a master, a Reiki master, whatever, So there can be movement in the energies, which can be very actually can cause bad feelings, like, you know, when the energy rises and you're not ready for that, that there is not much cleansing emotionally, karmically, whatever, then of course also the negative karma, negative energy will be felt very strongly. So in a way, in my life, everything has come like this. A bad thing happens. I mean, a bad things. We don't know if it is bad because the consequence is good later on. But like, I want to say something like a trauma, for instance, flooding, and there's a flood and your house gets completely destroyed. You go to Reiki session, you get somehow sick. It is not a sickness, but the energies are working not normally, let's say, after the initiation. And then you find your Sufi teacher. So it has happened always like that with me. And in Sufism, I have found myself, I must say. So I have started to discover my real self. And maybe the big difference when studying and practicing evolutionary astrology, the big difference between Sufism and evolutionary astrology is how we look into reincarnation. Because in Sufism, there is no reincarnation. So we believe that there is an endless, limitless life for our soul as energy, but we don't believe that in the worldly life we come with another body or we incarnate again, whatever. So this is not the case in Sufism. We believe that the karmas, because let's put it this way, we say in Sufism that the whole universe is within one person only. It is like, you know, since the beginning of the human creation, everything what humanity has lived, even like animal or insects or whatever, everything what is lived is within me, for instance, or within you, within everybody, for each one of us. Because we believe that God is seeing the world through our eyes. Let's say once God sees it through the eyes of Linda, once through the eyes of Cangül. So, because it says in Sufism, God says, I am a hidden treasure and I want to be discovered. That's why I have created humanity, human being. And I could not fit into the oceans, into the mountains, but I could fit into the heart of one human being only. So the real love, the real deep love is the love for God. This is how we see, because God is within us, within me, within you. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the path of Sufism is the path of love. And we say you dig inside of you and you'll find God. And Sufi masters say God is hidden himself or herself. There is no sex, of course. God has hidden himself into the or beyond the behind the doors, behind the deep and thick walls of fears. It's a palace of fear from outside, but when you get into it, it is the real love. So this is how we see actually. So there is nothing outside in reality. Everything is within us. In Quran, this is, the holy book for Islam. It says, the first thing it says, read. But it is not that we read or we learn to read. It's read your inner book, it says, because it's written there. Everything what you need to know is within you. So read your inner book. And this is how it started with me. And after 1 year, I have been feeling much better, and then I have started to understand why this unfortunate thing had happened to me. And then I was, of course, more careful with the energies and so on. But then I could understand that everything is in my heart. Everything is within me. So how I am seeing now the astrology when consulting people who are coming to me, even I do conferences and so on in Istanbul and in different cities in my country. I see the planets within me. I see, because this is the way of Sufism. If the whole universe is within me, then the planets are within me. And we say that the planets and the archetypes symbolized by each planet is like a sub-personality within us. And of course, the problem is that within us there are many personalities, like, for instance, Pluto wants to have power, Venus wants to have love, or the moon wants to be mothering. So every planet or every personality or every sub-personality is pulling us into different directions. So that's why there is not an integrity within us. And this is the problem. And again, in Sufism, we say there is nothing which is missing in the human being. There is too much, too many layers. And like an onion, you just take one layer after other and you find God, which is within you. This is why how I have been working on me with astrology and with the archetypes of the planets is actually this way, has been this way. So how does Pluto as archetype working within me? How does Saturn as archetype working within me? So again, how we are seeing in Sufism is, if we take everything like outside forces, there is this force, there is another force, and there is me. So there is a division, me and them, me and you. So if there is this division, there is always a kind of fight, so I have to fight with that energy. I have to fight against the archetype of Saturn or Pluto or my Pluto. So instead of that, we take into our cup, we say cup, the body, the physical body is actually a vehicle and a cup for us, where everything is inside. And like the metaphor, washing the dishes after eating food, we are loaded with a lot of negative energies, karmas, emotional traumas, and so on. And so first, we have to know how to clean them. So if Saturn is within me and Saturn is in my chart, conjunct South Node in 8th house, and Moon conjunct Saturn. So it's a stellium, a kind of stellium there. So what is Saturn doing within me? In which direction Saturn is taking me, or wants me to go, or puts me into the wrong direction, or what is the Moon doing within me? So we have to create the integrity inside, because when coming from God, God is that consciousness, that great ocean, the sacred ocean. That is oneness. We have come here from oneness. And in this bodily life in the world, actually we say we fall into the body because we're coming from oneness, which is perfect, everything harmonious. So the worldly life is a temporary station for us, for maturation, for correcting our mistakes, maybe discovering the karmas that we are not aware of. And if we see that there are different bodies, of course, people around us, but in reality, if there is a problem, if there is a trauma that I have faced, that if there's a problem that is like a recurring pattern happening in my life, I have to look within. So all these archetypes have to be examined inside. This is the approach of Sufism. And this has really helped me a lot. About 4 years I have been working this way on me. And actually after that, I could go into a new direction, which is how is now I am with you now talking about this. And of course, it's not easy. It's not been easy for me. But, like a baby step, I have done one step, and I'm still working on it, of course. But now, each time that I meet a client who's coming to me with his or her problems, to be able to see through, to be able to give advices to him or to her, and to be able to make him understand that we are here for a reason. Because, the main problem of this period that we are living in the world is not having a meaning, a meaningless. So people come to me with the search of meaning, So what is the meaning of life? Why am I here? Yeah. Where should I see or find the meaning? So the meaning is within us, and life itself may not have a meaning at all, or life has different meanings to everybody. Or maybe better to say, we should create our meaning in life. So I have started to create my meaning in my life 4 years ago, about 4 years ago. And, there is a story, a Sufi story. A searcher goes in a small village and sees that people are died very, even if they passed away 80 years of age, it says, okay, he lived only 5 years. The other one, she lived only 3 years, whatever. So he says, he asks the people there, but why is it so? I mean, why 5 years? Why 3 years only? And they say, we do not count the years that they have lived without meaning. So for me, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the real meaning has started, I can say. Now, I have been working and having a lot of money for many, many years. And I can say that now, as I am new in this job, in this field, uh, maybe I have the poorest conditions that economically in all these years, but I am also in the happiest period of my life because everything gives a meaning to me. Talking to you now, sharing with you my feelings, my thoughts, my life story, um, gives such a big happiness to me. Or if there's somebody coming to me, a client with his problems, being able to give advices for a solution and to work with him and seeing together that really there is a solution is such a big happiness. Or maybe I'm giving free conferences about relationships and inner child. And people are coming, especially young people, and they're listening. And at the end of the conference, they come and hug me. And it is, I mean, I could cry. Sometimes I have also, because, this is it. I mean, this is the meaning. So it's like, layer by layer, I can go deep. I can go inside of myself. And I discover another part of me. And as Yunus says, and as Rumi says, great mystics in Sufism, you are not a drop in the ocean, but you are the ocean itself. So my aim is actually to be able to really feel that I am the ocean. I didn't come to that point yet. I mean, as feeling, I can feel it. As idea, I can understand it. But to become really the ocean, that's the goal, of course, maybe for all of us. But it takes time and